Hello and welcome to Mulch, with me your host Rebecca Anning-Brown. This is a weekly podcast for flower farmers who want to build a confident flower farming practice that reflects the lifestyle that you want now and in the future. Each week I'll share conversation and tips to nurture and grow you and your flower farm. I'll open conversations that flower farmers find difficult to talk about, provide approaches that will help you to make decisions, chuckle at the idiosyncrasies of our work, and always be real and honest about my own work as a flower farmer. My goal is to help you to grow a curious, confident and grounded flower farming practice that flourishes as a business that you love and are proud to shout about. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you like what you hear, please do leave a review and share the podcast with your flower farming friends. It really does help to grow a confident and successful flower farming community. Hello and welcome back to Mulch, episode 22. I think, possibly 23 actually, 23. I'm not going to re-record this section, and I'm sure Antony will scowl and groan as he tries to edit it, but never mind. How are you? It's June, second week in June. I'm evidently struggling really hard, finding it really hard to locate myself in time and place today. But, you know, there's only been a hint of drizzle here in Yorkshire today. The sun has definitely been out. We have clouds. And I can't say that it's been cold, but I do have a blanket over my legs as I am recording today's episode. And that's probably a marker of our sunshine up here in the north of England. How are you? Have you got sunshine? And do you have slugs? Because we've got a ton of them up here. All right, let's crack on with today's show. Today's episode is entitled When is Enough Enough? Now, this is inspired by Susie. He's really sending me off track with my list of planned episodes. But I like it because it's wholly relevant, and actually it's only semi-inspired by Susie because it is something that I'd picked up on with social media. It's been a tough year. The rain, the floods, the wind, the slugs, the pests. It's been such a mild winter that we are completely overrun with rabbits where we are. Though I'm growing an increasing number of things, I've realised that rabbits won't eat, which is... it's a lifesaver, frankly, because otherwise, between the slugs and the rabbits, I'm not sure we'd have any flowers. But we do have flowers, and we are well into our tens of thousands of stems sold. And I'm super proud of this as we reach the sort of halfway point of 2024. Look, it's been a hard year in the land of flower farming, but I thought that I would just reflect a little bit on the years as they have passed so far. So this year is definitely the year of the slug and the rabbit because winter was so mild. 2023 was the year of the sun and soil like sand and flipping hungry deer. 2022 was COVID catch-up year. It's like there were never, ever enough flowers. And frankly, not only were there not enough flowers, but they were never in the right colours, which was incredibly frustrating both for me and for our customers. 2021. Well, that was the year of the cancellation and eternal patience. Orders were on, off, and the beds were so higgledy-piggledy that it was really difficult to find anything that I knew that I'd sown and grown. And we grew the best sunflowers ever in 2021. They were enormous, but there were just too many. We literally had a forest we had two parallel forests of sunflowers, which the kids loved. But for me, they were more than a slight nightmare. Anyway, 2020 was our first year at the field. We had freshly ploughed beds that helped the nettles to sprout up everywhere. It was the year of the COVID. And it's the year that it was the most grateful still for the beds that we have here at headquarters HQ. Because frankly, growing at the field was a big, fat disaster, except for calendula. We grew really, really good calendula that year. I didn't sell a lot of calendula, but we did grow a lot of calendula. So I guess I'm sharing this because every year thus far has felt like a disaster. And it's not actually a disaster, even though it feels like a disaster, because each year on year, we have sold more and more flowers. So when you look at the records, I think it's really helpful to put that in context. Like, our records show that even though each of those years was actually disastrous for a different reason, we still increased our productivity, we still increased our stem counts, we still increased our sales. So there must have been a benefit. There must have been something that came from all of those things. And so I thought I would share what we learned from each of those years. So 2023, the year of the sun, we learned that mulching fabric has its place, but for us, where we grow, that is mainly, and I do say mainly because it's not entirely, but it is mainly best used on the paths. And that's because our soil is quite free draining, which means that it dries out well. It's not sandy, but it's definitely not clay. And so the plastic serves as a phenomenal baking tool when it's hot. And whilst it does let some water through, nowhere near enough water gets through the PPX for us where we grow. So for this reason, we are steadily removing PPX from the beds that we grow in, but keeping it in the paths. Now, I say that with an element of caution. I'm certainly not suggesting that if you use PPX to plant through, you should be going to all of your beds to remove it, because this is about knowing our ground and about knowing our space. It's also about being aware that one of the reasons that we have used PPX so much is because we don't grow at home. We rent an acre and a half of space. It's 20 minutes up the road, 15, 20 minutes up the road. And for a large proportion of our growing careers so far, we have had 2, 3, 4 other jobs between us. And so PPX has made it possible for us to grow, because without it, there's no way we would have got on top of the grass, on top of the weeds. And we're definitely not on top of them because they're growing everywhere. But it would have been impossible for us. And we don't have storage, so any tools that we have go up to the field and they come back. So we don't have a mower up there. It just wouldn't have been possible to get this far without it. So with an element of caution, and now knowing that I have more available time for the business and we have a member of staff to help us, that PPX is going slowly and steadily, or at least being reduced to path containers rather than bed covers. Okay, 2022 was COVID catch-up year, most definitely. And I guess from all those orders that were catch-up, what I really learned was the difference between growing for retail and growing for weddings. And it's when I first began that kind of quest for floaty, frothy fillers and flowers and more white, and more blush and pale pink, more blush. And if you could see me, you can see me rolling my eyes because blush isn't a colour. Like, we have so many conversations around our kitchen table about blush. It's really quite sad. But, a conversation that my kids will engage in relating to the flower farm. So that's not a bad thing. I still can't grow enough of any of those things. Floaty flowers, whites and blush. And so that was the year that I started, and we will be building and growing our kind of availability of those 3, maybe 4 things. Again this year, again next year, and probably for the rest of our flower farming careers, because they're essential for the market that we serve. 2021. Well, that was the year that I learned to hold my nerve. Like with orders going on and off, it was rocky and uncertain. And in particular, as the supplier, the person providing the flowers for our customers, it was a roller coaster that wasn't particularly pleasant. And it's when I first started thinking about how I wanted to structure the business so that our income streams were varied. And I guess that's my learning point that I want to share with you. And that variety, that diversity in your business will be different for everyone. But what you're after is diversity without overwhelm. So what Antony and I started doing is testing and trying ways to use our flowers, ways to spread our business, so that we could work out which of those kind of income streams eventually we would want to do more of and which we would want to drop or do less of. And not only is that about what we can do, it's about the lifestyle that we want our business to offer us. And again, that will be different for everyone. So 2020, well, that was the first year that we were growing or trying to grow at scale in a field with no farming or horticultural experience. I mean, like in retrospect, it was such a nuts idea. But it's the year that I asked the question, how much do I really want to do this? Because it's harder than it looks. And I had so much to learn about farming, about farmers, about flowers, about soil, about marketing, sales, business. I mean, the list is literally endless. Oh, okay, so what's my point? Why am I reflecting on these years rather than just talking about whether I've had enough this season or not? And the answer is I haven't had enough this season. It's June and we've got a ton more flowers to come, and I haven't even thought about foliage season. Never mind a small barrage of workshops and courses that Antony and I are excitedly kind of squirreling away on in the background. So my point is this: if you are new or newish to flower farming, every year is a learning year, and there will come a point in absolutely every growing year when you think, oh, this is too hard and it's all uphill and I've had enough. And this year is most definitely the year of the rain and the slug, and if it is your first year, then you're completely forgiven by any and every flower farmer in the world for thinking this is a stupid way to earn a living. So what I want you to do is to stop and to look around, because everyone is struggling. I feel fortunate to be able to talk to some incredibly experienced growers around the country, around the UK, and some around the world as well. And what I can report back without naming any names is that even people, growers that you will know of and will have heard of who have been doing this for a decade or more are finding this year hard. But again, if you look at all of those growers and look at what they're doing, they're just getting on with it. They're sharing their frustrations and sharing their moans. It's visible in their social media. And they're sharing it in different ways, which is equally interesting. But they're still just getting on with it, growing, cutting, and selling anyway. And that's what you need to do, even if it's hard, even if you feel like you have less than you want to, because it's how and where you learn. And flower farming and business in general, it's the things that you learn when it's tough and it's hard that make it easier when it's easy and floaty and free. So I guess what I want to say, moving on from that, is that it isn't actually any easier for them. They've literally just been doing it for longer, which means that they have learned from more challenging years than you have, which means that they just have more stock to work from, and you will build that stock too. It takes time. And they will have crossed that decision-making bridge about how much they really want to be doing this before, year after year, kind of couple of years after couple of years. And they know that it's what they want to do, and they know that it's hard, and that they know that they will still keep producing the flowers and foliage despite that. Okay? They are finding the slugs and the rain and everything else hard too. Okay, so this season is hard. And Rebecca is saying every season is hard. If all seasons are hard and hard for different reasons, or like, how do you go about this? What do you do? I guess the question for me is, and the question, it's not really about the question, it's about where I started this episode. I started the episode with the question, actually, is it time to just give up for this season and move on to next and start planning for next season, or just take a rest and a break and come back to it then? And I'd say this to you, if you're tired and you're feeling burnt out and you're desperate for a rest, take the rest. When you come back, there'll be a few more weeds and there'll still be flowers. I can promise you that. There will still be flowers. So you take a day, take a couple of days, take a week, take a couple of weeks. Do whatever it is that you need to recharge your batteries. And I talk a lot about recharging batteries, and I talk a lot about well-being. Go back through the episodes if you want to hear some more about that. But taking the time out isn't a sign of failure. It's just a sign of needing to breathe and to reflect, and then to come back with more energy and more vigour to carry on, because the season is not over yet. It's June, and even for the newer guys out there, like August, early September are completely doable. All right? So here are some top tips. Like, I always want to be helpful. I'm not just telling you to take a rest and come back and go, there's weeds up to my head. I can't do this. Because you can. You absolutely can do this. So here are my top tips to help you. Number 1, my favourite thing to do when I'm finding business hard is to write a list. Now, some of you will think, oh my goodness, she's advocating a flipping list again. I do love a list. I really do love a list. But this list is about all the things that you've achieved in your business this year. Don't be an Eeyore about this. Now, there's one really big example of Eeyore in our household. I'm not going to say who it is, but don't be an Eeyore about this. Write down everything, from the beds that you've made to the seeds that you've successfully germinated, the things that you've germinated this year that you've never had success with before, to finding your first customer, sending out your first DIY wedding or your first Flower Rangers bucket, and pulling out weeds as tall as your head. Like, if you pull them out before they've produced flowers and the flower seeds have spread everywhere, I promise you this is a massive success. This is something that you've achieved in your business this year. It may not feel like it, but I promise you it is. Number 2, make a note of your best crops so far this season and why you think they've done well. So if it's tulips, why did the tulips do well? If it's calendula, why has it grown so well for you? If it's Nepeta, which is one of my favourites actually, but if it's Nepeta, why is it doing well for you? What's the characteristics of it that mean that it's performing where you grow for you? Because once you know the things that are performing well despite the weather and the slugs, you can look for those characteristics in other things that you grow. Okay. Number 3, work out what you'll still have growing in the coming days and weeks and who you're going to sell it to. And then go to those people and make sure that they know that you have it. Number 4, keep growing. It's June. So actually you can still be sowing your biennials. You can still be sowing half-hardies. It's probably a bit late for annuals, but you could still be sowing or starting to sow perennials. keep growing, keep documenting your story, keep an eye on the records that you're making about what's going on, so that you're giving yourself small steps forward all the time, but also so that as you're documenting it and sharing and showing, you're demonstrating to your customers that you're determined to improve and to grow more for them year on year on year. Get them on your side by sharing your story. Number 5, sell everything and anything that you can. Now, I don't mean sell the weeds. I say that by raising an eyebrow. I do not mean sell the weeds. Any flower that you cut, any flower that you can cut, find someone to sell it to. Number 6, take billions and gazillions of photographs of everything. If I have one regret, it's not taking enough or more photographs, especially earlier on in our flower farming world, because now I take loads, still nowhere near as many as I want to or feel like I should, though I hate that word, should. I'm trying to take more and more and more, take photographs of everything, because they will always, always, always come in useful. And if you've forgotten to make a record of it in writing, then a picture speaks 1,000 words. It's an old-fashioned saying, but it does. It tells you what you were doing and when. It tells you what was growing and when. It tells you what it looked like at the stage you cut it at. And if you are not sure if it was the right stage, then you can look back at it and think, that was good, that worked. This wasn't so good, that didn't work. There is your learning. Okay. Number 7, watch your growing space in every single day that you can. Watch the light, watch the protected areas, look at how the light falls when the sun rises and it falls, look for shady areas, look for sheltered areas. Like, the knowledge from watching your plot alone and seeing what's growing where and what condition is invaluable, because the better you know your space, the better you can use it to your advantage to extend your season without necessarily having protection and cover. Number 8, learn to love everything about what you do. And I do mean everything, with a possible exception of admin. Admin is necessary, it makes the world go round, but it's definitely not something that I love. It's just necessary. Okay, doing these things will help you. They'll help you to reflect and learn and plan for your future years in flower farming practice. And if you decide that this isn't for you, then that's okay. Because I would say, I can't remember who said it first, that it's always, always better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Like, if you haven't given it a go, if you haven't thought, I really want to have a go at this and try my hardest and try my best and put my everything into it, you'll never know if it's what you want to do. And if you get to the end of your year or 6 months or whatever it is you're choosing to do, you decide, actually, this isn't for me, you've ruled it out for the right reasons, rather than because you were too scared to sow some seeds or try and sell a flower or a bouquet. Okay, enough philosophy from me. Antony and I are almost ready to release the details about both flower farming courses and a small but not insignificant number of short courses that will be running over autumn and winter and into next year, into 2025. Yeah, I did say it again, 2025. If you want to know more about them when the information is available, then use the link in the show notes to sign up for the newsletter when it goes out. It's a newsletter that is just about the courses, just about the workshops. I don't spam, I don't send newsletters out in general. Very often, I probably should send more, but I don't. So the important thing to know about that is that not only do you need to click to sign up by following the link, but you need to opt in by confirming your email address from your inbox. So if you've clicked on it and you've not seen that confirmation box, please check your spam folder. Please check your junk mail, because that's where the confirmation link will be. Without clicking on that confirmation link, you won't hear anything from us at all. All right? Cool. Thank you for listening. Happy Monday to you all, wherever you are. I hope you have a wonderful week to come. And I'll be back next week with some comments and learning and thoughts on flower farming and practice. Rebecca.
Thank you for listening to Mulch. I hope that you found it useful. To find the show notes, head back to our website where you'll find links to all the things that I've been talking about in today's episode. If you're on Instagram, you can find us at Silver Grey Foliage. I would appreciate it so much if you were able to share this episode in your Instagram stories. And if you are able to leave a review, it really will help more people to get on and grow. I'll be back with you next Monday to talk about more flower farming and practice. Rebecca.